Hi, guys. Welcome to the Microsoft 365 Pulse. I am here with Tamara and Tom. Jen is actually enjoying vacation. So, hi, Jen, if you actually watch. But you guys are stuck with the three of us for now. So, we're going to have a pretty brief show today. There's not a ton of updates going along. This kind of makes sense. You're about the time where they've rolled out all the stuff post Ignite and some of those conferences. So, you're starting to get into the swing of them back into their development phase. But we'll have a pretty short show today. We do actually have stuff in all four categories. So friendly reminder, we'll start off with in development. That means they've just added it to the roadmap. They know what's coming. From there, it goes to rolling out. That's when it starts the phase cycles of releases. So it might be first release, might be second release. It's in the process of getting to everyone. After rolling out, it goes to launch, which basically means it should be there for everyone. And everyone's going to have an asterisk because everyone does not necessarily GCC high. They will typically say what clouds they're going to, but launch means a feature has gone through the production cycle, and then finally the dreaded canceled. We have a couple things listed in canceled this time to talk about, but in typical fashion, a lot of times it's canceled but not really canceled. So we'll get to all of that. But anyways, we're going to start it in development. As always, I'm going to pass off to some of my wonderful colleagues. So Tamara, you want to kind of go ahead and get us started with what you're excited about in development this week?
Sure, thanks, Adam. So Microsoft Teams, an update to the meeting participants' access to the meeting chat. So what's happening is that people who are added to the meeting through the meeting link and were not added to the original meeting invite will have access to chats, meeting content after the meeting ends. They'll continue to have access to the meeting assets during the meeting, but they lose access once the meeting ends. So again, that's if you're inviting them through the meeting link and they're not on the actual invitation. So I'm a little disappointed about that.
Yeah, that one's a really good one to go out and look up on the roadmap if you want more information, because there's like a series of, if it's a one-time meeting and this happens, then this is the situation. If it's a recurring meeting and they're added as part of the invite, then it works this way. If they're brought in for just that one, then it works this other way. There's a lot of variations of it, so it's not a real cut and dried saying, hey, if you were added, boom. So yeah, it's a little confusing. I'm kind of wondering why they did that, but oh well.
Your turn, Tom.
Okay, a couple things towards the bottom of the very small in development list. In OneDrive, iOS, so if you have an iPhone, page rotation for PDF viewing. So now you can change the page rotation when you're looking at PDF documents. I usually try to read in portrait mode, but sometimes the print becomes itty bitty 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 tiny. You can go ahead and flip the orientation to do landscape, even though you don't see as much at a time. You're seeing bigger text. So that's not going to be an option to you in iOS when it finally comes out. Also in Microsoft Forms, confirm phishing option available for IT admins. Right now, what you're going to have when they come out with this is the IT admins, if they have responses that look like potential phishing, when those are coming in for forms, you can either click unblock or confirm phishing. And confirm phishing is apparently the new option that is now available. So you can start tracking those things and get a trend as to what's happening in Microsoft Forms when it comes to people responding with phishing type information. So something to look at there.
Anything else you guys want to talk about? I know the nerdy stuff I'm going to mention, no one's going to mention. So I'll see if there's anything else you guys want to talk about.
Your turn, Adam.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I had two that I saw. One of them's really simple. They're coming out with something for the compliance center that they're calling the audit retention dashboard. From what I can tell, it's just going to be a new landing page that lets you go through and look at audit log retention policies that you have set up and how you're handling them. So that's nice, I guess. The one that I thought was actually really cool is Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection Linux EDR. So you probably remember and heard us talk about Microsoft. One of the things they did this Ignite was rebrand a ton of their security products under the Defender tag. So they have Microsoft Defender, they have Windows Defender, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All their security products are now falling under the shield that is Defender. Well, they're actually putting now in development Linux EDR capabilities around Microsoft Defender. So basically, some of the protection things that you can do are going to extend out to Linux servers. This is fairly important when you look at the big picture of Microsoft being a one-stop shop for organizations to do for protection. Obviously, you've been able to do Linux servers and VMs and stuff in Azure for a bit, which is nice, but a lot of their stuff has traditionally stayed on Windows. I mean, it made sense. Windows was their operating system, but that's how they've kind of gone through and done stuff. By them extending out and putting some security and Defender capabilities on Linux, this is really going to start making the Defender suite and the Microsoft option as a whole a potential one-stop shop for even those companies out there that have Linux VMs that they run and Linux servers and stuff that they run too. It's now no longer going to have to be cool. You have Microsoft that can do all this wonderful stuff on your Windows servers, and oh yeah, by the way, you can use a 12-year-old, Thunderbird product to maybe do stuff on Linux for you. They're actually doing development targeted at Linux servers, which I think is actually pretty cool, and I think that has greater implications in the overall picture of Microsoft's market play of where they're trying to position themselves long term. So I think outside of just being a cool thing to see on the roadmap and a cool feature itself, I think that's a bigger point and the moving target or the cultural shift and Microsoft around trying to become more of a defined, not just Windows, but a whole product consumption for companies, which is, again, kind of cool and nerdy.
Yep, I agree. So should
Anything
we move
else,
on
guys?
to, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, well, we're now going to the even smaller section of rolling out. I don't even know if we'll all have something to talk about here, but I'm going to start with Tamara again and the rolling out section. Guys, there's literally 3 updates here, so maybe we'll all talk about one. I guess we'll see.
All right, so Microsoft Teams, polls in team meetings. So Forms polls for Teams meeting provides an easily discoverable and seamless experience that's going to help you conduct more engaging and productive meetings. So with form polls, the meeting presenters can prepare, launch, and evaluate the polls before, during, and after the meeting, respectively, all from one place under a tab in the Teams meeting. So this is going to make it really convenient, especially if you're having a large meeting and it's hard to get people to interact, to add some interaction into your meetings.
Tom, do you want to talk about any of the other 2?
Sure. This one is really, really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. The Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which is MTD for iOS in preview. So this basically means that Microsoft for Endpoint on the iOS thing is going to offer your phishing protection, the blocking of unsafe connections, and the ability to create those custom indicators. And your security teams will be able to access those alerts and threat insights through the Microsoft Defender Security Center. So again, being able to push all those type features that we have out there out to mobile devices, in this particular one, iOS.
Yeah,
How'd I do there? Was that good for taking a geeky
Tom.
one?
Yeah, no, you did great. Just to clarify, because I even find this confusing all the time, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is basically just like antivirus and stuff like that. When you're talking about endpoint, you're saying they are protecting the end user computer, in this case, the end user Mac iOS devices on user systems. That will be different from holistic stuff that's going on top of servers, or different from stuff that's about Defender all over Office 365 or Azure as a whole. But so this is basically just them saying they're protecting user Mac. The final one, we've talked about this before, but just be aware, double key encryption is coming for government clouds. What this basically comes down to is there's more than one encryption key. This matters if you have a compliance requirement that you hold your own encryption keys, so you don't want to be giving them from Microsoft. That's really where this comes into play. So customers that have the compliance requirement where they need to hold their own encryption keys and not give it to Microsoft, double key encryption lets Microsoft have their own key, but it needs to have an additional key on your side in order to be able to go in and unlock it. It means that someone on Microsoft can't go through and just willy-nilly without your approval. So that's where it comes in play. So that's literally it. There's nothing else we can talk about inside of rolling out. So we're going to go ahead and move on to launch. And Tom, I'm going to let you go first this time.
Okay, well, I'm going to scroll down a little bit on the list. Again, with launched, it's one of those things that we've discussed these probably multiple times in the past, so we're not going to go into large scale description of these things. However, a couple that one specifically that I really like is the Microsoft Teams turning off text preview for chat notifications, or what I like to refer to it as the avoiding the "that was awkward" moment. So if you don't have everything shut down and blocked while you're in a meeting and somebody sends you a chat message, you may see like the first 80 or so characters, which could be something like, "Wow, that was a stupid thing to say." And if you're sharing your screen, everybody can see that and you're going, "Whoa, that's going to be difficult to explain when I hang up here." So what you can do is you can turn text preview off. You'll still see the pop-up, but it'll just say basically you received a message from somebody. Again, really nice from the privacy perspective. The only flip side is if you're used to responding to the actual message in the pop-up box without going out to Teams, you do lose that capability. It doesn't give you the chance to respond to it. It just tells you you received the message. So play around with it, see which one works best for you. But yeah, really a good idea to look at using that in case people are sending messages to you while you're sharing your screen, and that's not good.
Tamara?
Well, Forms got a lot of love all over the place for launch. So in Forms, a quick poll add-in is pre-installed in Outlook. So Outlook for Mac and Outlook for the web users will get the Forms quick poll add-in installed by default. If users have already installed the add-in, they will need to uninstall it to see the new add-in. So that'll give you the ability to do polls right in there. And then Forms, the poll added to Outlook Windows. I think this is the same thing. A new polling add-in will soon be pre-installed in Outlook for Windows. By default, the meeting's end users, again, no longer need to install the quick poll add-in from the store. It'll automatically be installed for you. That launched back in June, so you should be seeing that now.
Cool.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I was going to say one more thing that I'll just throw out here too. Microsoft Teams now has language-aware proofing. So if you're using different languages to go back and forth with messages to different people based on what's going on, the spell checking can now sense what language you're using and give you proper spell checking and stuff like that.
My Spanish friends are going to be so happy that it's not just everything is underlined as misspelled that they type.
Por favor, what does that mean? I don't know. Yeah. Dos equis, please.
Yeah, I felt bad. I not recently, but go and you guys, I'm sure, experience this too. I go and talk at different conferences and stuff, and every now and then you'll see someone from another country. And I've gotten friends from some people from Spanish-speaking countries just being in Texas. It's not that uncommon that we have people that are involved with Spanish speakers. And like, if you ever see them talking Spanish on Teams back in the day, like literally everything was misspelled according to the spell check. It's just like, oh, that would like, I'm terrible at spelling, so I would be second guessing myself the whole time. Keeping in line with Tom's update, there's a couple cool things with language that I didn't understand what it meant at first, so I had to go out and Google it, but I thought it was kind of cool. For advanced e-discovery and also for DLP and EDM stuff, basically they're adding support for Japanese, Chinese, and Korean languages. They call it double byte fonts is some of the characters that are used there too. But in general, if you're doing advanced e-discovery and things like that, it's now going to support Chinese, simple Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, as well as their characters. And you can also start incorporating that into DLP policies and EDM. If you don't know what EDM is, EDM stands for exact data match. It's basically like DLP on crack, where a good example of this is if you are a company that has certain records that you need to protect, the easiest way to think about this is maybe you're a hospital and you want to make sure none of your information is getting out. If you had a database or repository of all of your customers and their information, you could upload that to EDM, and then that database would be used to query against your documents. And if it found information in those documents related to any of the information that you've identified as important, it'll basically add DLP protections to it. So it's basically like, this is our holy grail. We can't let any of this stuff leak. And it's no longer an algorithm if it matches a pattern. It's, okay, this is Tom. Tom's hospital number is X. His date of birth is Y. It will go through and look for his date of birth, look for his name, look for his hospital number. And if it finds any of that, it'll basically mark it as, this is an EDM to patient records. We're going to make sure this is flagged appropriately and doesn't allow it to get out. That's basically a much more guaranteed way to protect user data. I can tell you in practice, interestingly enough, from working with multiple customers that are in HIPAA or FINRA or some of my NIST customers, it's a terrifying thought for them to take their, we can't allow anything to happen to this data and give it to Microsoft. So we'll see how many people actually go through and end up using it. But in theory, it's a cool concept. So we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. Anything else you guys want to mention?
Yeah, there was one thing that got me all excited by looking at the roadmap, and I forgot about it, but it's Teams as templates.
Oh, yes.
So now you'll be able to choose from some predefined templates that Microsoft will put out to you, but also the IT department in the admin console create customized. You'll just be able to, then boom, all of a sudden you have the team with the channels and the apps and everything else you need to move forward. So if you have like a project team that is set up exactly the way you want all projects to be set up in the future, have the IT department or the IT who has access to the admin console make that team a template and then just spin it up every time you need a team. And that way you have consistency across all the projects.
That is really cool.
I'm so excited about that.
There's something I saw that I'm equally excited about, but mine is not nearly as happy. They added offline presence status for Teams.
That was the thing I was going to bring up if you didn't.
Yeah, and so like it's kind of funny because I feel almost guilty saying this, but we all have times where like you just don't want to be bothered by people. You just have work you need to do, and you can make yourself away, and you have the ability to do that. But they basically have the ability where you can basically make it look like you're offline, but still have access to everything you need to be on for Teams. I can say from my side, and this is because I have a whole bunch of dedicated colleagues, it's not that uncommon that I have to work on the weekend or something like that, but that involves me needing to get onto Teams, which then shows me there, and there's about a 50% chance if I'm working on a Saturday, one of my sales buddies is going to hit me up for some questions or something like that. So being able to show offline while I'm doing the work that I need, this is awesome, so I'm excited about that.
The other thing that I really like about that too is I work from 6 a.m. till 3 p.m. Pacific time. Actually, it's usually earlier than that too, but the fact remains is that when all I had the option to do was say away, 3 o'clock, people like, oh, he's just away. I'll just leave a message for when he comes back. Tom's not coming back until tomorrow morning. And so to be able to say offline, to me, that's a much more definitive statement that says, I am not available. I am gone. So I like it for that reason. And it's in our client. And I am starting to use that now on a regular basis when I'm done at the end of the day, just to say offline, even though I'm still looking at Teams and email and everything else.
Anything else that you want to mention at once?
Nope, I think we're good. You might as well hit the cancels.
Yeah, so we'll go into canceled. I know I mentioned this on canceled one of our last couple shows as well, but I'll just reiterate it because it's there. They postponed the feature if you're doing hybrid and exchange of being able to auto map full access across a hybrid deployment. I know we talked about this earlier. I'm imagining they changed the language or something here too, so that's why it got caught up in our algorithm that we go through and run to pull stuff. But just know that that's still going to eventually happen. It's just currently postponed. Guys, anything y'all want to mention?
I'm just looking at that last one because I remember we did talk about that one at one point, just because of the writing. Have you ever created an inbox rule to move?
Microsoft loved it so much.
Yeah, so like, this is a duplicate. We're going to pull it off the roadmap. It's like, oh, they were so thrilled with that. They put it on there twice, apparently. So, hey, cool.
Yeah, well, I just remember I loved it. We're going to play this out. Have you ever created an inbox rule to move incoming messages to a distribution list? You're onto a specific folder, but then you discover that some senders will add the DL to the BCC line. So the rule, for privacy reasons, is ignored and messages land in your inbox instead. Ugh, and it says ugh, UGH with an exclamation point.
That's where I want to do the thing from NPR where they go, "Have you ever done such and such?" I have.
But yeah, this one was worded funny. Do you want to talk about the last one, Tamara?
Oh, it's just the block. We've got that. Are you talking about the enhanced thread explorer?
Yeah, and realistically, this is just moved to another roadmap item, so it's not even going away.
All they did was split it into 2 different items.
Yeah, so that feature's not going away, so we don't even have to spend any time on it.
No.
But technically, there were 3 things that are canceled. So that's it, guys. I promised a quick show for us, but hopefully you found some cool updates. I know there's some neat stuff going on. Like I said, this is kind of getting along the lines of the speed we'll expect for the next couple weeks, kind of going into the holidays. This is typically what you expect around the roadmap. There'll be steady progress that they're going through and making, but you're kind of getting to the lull after they had the 80,000 things that they did at post their conference circuit. Will probably be pretty steady state until we get to the new year and everyone starts hitting stuff and coming up with fancy stuff again. But regardless, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, and hopefully everyone's getting excited for Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Have a good one. Bye.